Hey everyone, today we're tackling a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and probably to yours too. Figuring out how to give your cat the absolute best care without, well, breaking the bank.
It's a question I get a lot, that's for sure.
And luckily you've got some great insights on this, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely some smart ways to make sure your furry friend is living their best life without you having to, resort to eating ramen noodles every day.
Okay, I like where this is going. So, to help us unpack this whole budget savvy cat care thing,
Yeah.
you sent over some notes from this guide. What was it called?
How to care for your cat on a budget.
Right, right. Seems like the perfect place to start.
It really is. And one of the simplest yet honestly most overlooked things you can do is, drum roll please, create a pet budget.
See, now that's where I think, budgeting. Is it really that important? I'm more of a figure it out as I go kind of person.
I get it. I get it. But it's more than just important. It's really essential for, being a responsible pet owner. Think of it like, would you go on like a road trip without, a map, some snacks, an idea of how much gas money you might need?
Okay, okay, point taken. I can see where you're coming from. But how detailed does this cat care roadmap need to be?
So the good news is it doesn't have to be this big complicated thing.
Yeah.
Start by just like listing out those recurring costs,
Yeah.
food, litter, that monthly flea and tick prevention. And then, think about the less frequent but equally important stuff like those annual vet checkups, vaccinations, all that good stuff.
Right, because those vet bills, those can sneak up on you. Speaking of which, what about like emergencies? Those always seem to happen at the worst possible time.
That's where having like a plan for those less predictable expenses comes in. Now, I know this might sound a bit like a broken record, but setting aside even a small amount each month for an emergency fund can make a world of difference. It's like creating your own little safety net for those unexpected trips to the vet.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's way easier to handle those surprise expenses when you're at least somewhat prepared. Now, the guide also mentioned pet insurance. Is that something worth looking into?
It definitely can be. It's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, but it can provide some serious peace of mind, especially if you have a breed that's, prone to certain health issues, or if you're just someone who tends to, worry about those what-if scenarios.
So it's kind of like choosing between a safety net or a potential financial cushion, depending on like your risk tolerance and what you can realistically afford.
Exactly. Some people prefer having that control of self-insuring with, an emergency fund, while others really like knowing they have that backup plan with pet insurance. It really boils down to your individual, circumstances and preferences.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got our budgeting game plan somewhat figured out. But what about those everyday essentials that always seem to disappear faster than a cat toy under the couch? I'm talking about food and litter. Those costs can really add up.
Oh, tell me about it. But luckily, those are also areas where you can often find some sneaky savings. Let's dig into those a bit more, shall we? Have you ever considered the magic of buying in bulk?
Buying in bulk. See, I've always been a little hesitant about that, especially when it comes to food. I always worry about it, going stale or attracting unwanted guests, like little critters getting into it.
I hear you, I hear you. But as long as you have the right storage situation set up, buying in bulk can be like a game changer for your budget.
Okay, so what does the right storage situation actually look like?
For dry food, airtight containers are your best friend. Locks in the freshness, keeps those little critters out, And for litter, cool, dry place is key.
All right, all right. You've soothed my storage anxieties a little bit. But does buying in bulk actually make that much of a difference?
It can be huge, especially over time. I mean, imagine if you're saving like even $5, $10 per bag of litter or food. That adds up.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light here. So bulk buying aside, any other secret weapons when it comes to saving on like the everyday cat stuff, or is that like the holy grail?
Don't underestimate those online subscriptions.
Yeah.
So many companies have discounts, free shipping if you sign up for like recurring deliveries of food, litter, you name it.
Yeah. It's like set it and forget it, but for your cat's needs.
Exactly.
I can definitely get behind that. Frees up more time for, those important play sessions. Speaking of which, the guide mentions some pretty interesting DIY cat toys. Is that something you generally recommend?
100%. It's amazing what like the simplest things can do to entertain a cat. Cardboard box, instant castle, crumpled up piece of paper, worthy adversary.
Right.
Don't even get me started on the magic of a dangling string. They go crazy for that.
Oh, yeah, it's like their favorite thing ever. Now, the guide also mentioned creating like even more, I don't know, elaborate things like scratching posts, even cat trees out of like inexpensive materials.
Love that idea.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's fantastic. Repurposing, old carpets, wooden boards, leftover sisal rope. Suddenly you've got yourself like a climbing paradise for your feline friend. And you're saving money and giving those materials a new life.
Plus, there's just something so satisfying about like watching your cat enjoy something you actually made yourself, you know?
It's a labor of love. Now, speaking of, keeping those furry friends happy and healthy, why don't we transition to a topic that can be a little daunting? Vet care.
Ooh, yes. Especially like the financial side of vet care, that can be a bit scary.
For sure.
I know the guides stress the importance of preventative care, but what does that actually look like in real life?
So preventative care really comes down to those, regular checkups, vaccinations, that flea and tick prevention we were talking about. It's just so much easier, not to mention way more affordable, to actually prevent a health issue than to have to treat it once it becomes serious.
It's like that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, these days, a lot of vet clinics are offering these wellness plans. They basically bundle those essential services at a discounted price.
Now that is music to my ears. That sounds like a much less painful way to budget for those regular vet visits.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it makes sure your cat's getting, that consistent care.
Very good point. So, moving on, let's talk about another way to like pamper your furry little friend without totally overspending. Homemade cat treats.
Oh, fun.
This is a topic I'm very interested in. The guide mentioned things like cooked chicken, salmon, even like scrambled eggs. Are those actually good for cats to eat?
They can be. I
Yeah.
mean, cats are obligate carnivores, so those are all great, protein-rich options. Can be a nice little supplement to their regular diet. However, and this is important, definitely consult with your vet before you go making any like big dietary changes.
Of course, of course.
They can advise you on, appropriate portion sizes, make sure you're actually meeting your cat's individual nutritional needs, all that good stuff.
That's a really good reminder. I would hate to like accidentally create a nutritional imbalance just because I got a little too excited about the homemade goodies.
Exactly. Now, while we're on the subject of food, let's tackle another essential but sometimes painfully expensive item, litter.
Ah, yes, litter. It's like the necessary evil. Are there any clever ways to like cut costs in this department, or are we just stuck with whatever the pet store happens to have on sale?
You might be surprised to learn that there are actually quite a few alternatives out there to that, traditional clay litter.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Recycled paper, wood pellets, even natural materials like sand can all be viable options. And they're often much cheaper than the clay litter and can be a more, eco-friendly choice as well.
Wow, I had no idea. Are they generally okay with switching litter types?
They can be. It's all about making that transition gradually. Start by like mixing a small amount of the new litter in with their old litter, and then you just slowly increase that ratio over time.
Oh, that's a great tip. Okay, I'm taking notes. Now, before we move on to our final like budget saving strategy, I want to touch on something that is like so close to my heart. Adopting a cat from a shelter.
The best.
The guide highlights this as like a total win-win, and I could not agree more. But how exactly does adopting a shelter cat like help your wallet?
That's a great question. I know it's a wonderful thing to do, but I'm curious about the financial benefits as well.
Well, the adoption fees at shelters are going to be like way less than buying from a breeder.
Right. That makes sense.
And here's the real bonus. A lot of times, shelters will actually cover those initial vet costs for you.
Oh, wow. Really? Like, what sorts of things are we talking?
Spaying or neutering, vaccinations, sometimes even microchipping.
Wow. See, that's huge. I mean, those initial vet visits can really add up quickly.
Absolutely. They really try to make it, as smooth a transition as possible for everyone.
That's wonderful. Okay, so ready to move on to our last budget saving strategy.
Hit me with it. All right. So we've talked about, planning for those regular expenses. But what about those unexpected vet bills? Like those curveballs life throws our way. The guide emphasizes the importance of an emergency fund. And
It's so important.
yeah,
It's one of the smartest things you can do as a pet owner because, none of us want to think about our furry little friends getting sick or injured.
yeah,
But the reality is it can happen.
it's true. And those costs, those can be, really substantial.
Oh, yeah.
Having that emergency fund, it takes a little bit of the stress out of a really stressful situation, right?
Absolutely.
It allows you to really focus on what's most important, which is your cat's well-being.
100%.
So how much should people aim to have in their, like, emergency fund? Is there a magic number?
It doesn't have to be this big, huge amount, especially right away.
Mm.
Even setting aside like a small amount every month, $10, $20, whatever you can manage, it really adds up over time.
It's all about having that little cushion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just that little bit of like, I don't know, security.
Exactly. And, sometimes just knowing you have that emergency fund, it can actually prevent you from like making impulsive decisions that might not be the best for your cat in the long run.
That's a really good point. It's like having that financial buffer allows you to really like take a step back and make the most like rational decision, which ultimately is what's best for everybody.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about budgeting, bulk buying, the DIY fund you can have, preventative care, all those alternative litter options, even, the amazing benefits of adopting a cat from a shelter.
There are so many ways to, give your cat a wonderful life, and it doesn't have to break the bank.
It really doesn't. And, as we wrap up this deep dive, it just occurs to me that a lot of these like budget savvy tips, they can actually lead to a stronger bond with your cat.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Think about it. The shared joy of, tackling a DIY project together, the extra playtime that those homemade toys encourage, even just like paying closer attention to your cat's diet, their health. It can really bring you closer.
Those small things, those are the things they remember.
It's so true. Well said. So, as you navigate the world of cat ownership, just remember that providing exceptional care, it doesn't have to drain your bank account.
Nope.
A little creativity, some savvy planning, and a whole lot of love go a long way.
Couldn't agree more.
Until next time, everyone, happy budgeting, and give those furry little friends a scratch behind the ears from us.